Welcome to the Ending Sexploitation podcast, where we decode sexual harm and provide you with active solutions. I'm your host, Kaylee McNamara. All right, well, welcome everyone. Welcome back to another episode, and so glad as always to have Danny Pinter here. How are you, Danny?
Good to be here with you, Haley.
Today is another wild day as we're talking about a 10-year federal moratorium on any state or local laws around AI. This is something that people might have heard about before. There's probably been a lot of headlines increasingly in the last couple of weeks, but this is a really crazy provision that I think it's time for us to shine a light on. And thankfully, we do have actions that those listening can take to help support some common sense against this broad stroke moratorium on AI regulations. So let's dive into it. This idea was really introduced in the budget reconciliation bill. Some people have referred to it, the Republicans have been referring to it as the One Big Beautiful Bill. It's a tax spending package spearheaded by Republicans in the House. And in this huge bill, they've snuck this concept of banning states from being able to have AI specific regulations, which is pretty wild. And the way that they
Yeah.
have, just what general thoughts on this concept?
Yeah. Well, I haven't been following as closely as you, Haley, but I definitely heard about it. We even, you know, um, our colleague Kristen Price, when she testified at I think it was a Senate Judiciary or Commerce hearing on Section 230, one of the members were bringing it up then and asking what
Mm.
we thought about it. Then so, you know, I s I don't I'm confused as to why it's appropriate in this bill. Like, it's just kinda seems kind of, I could be wrong, but it seems kinda shady that it's even appearing in a budget bill, when this is
Mhm.
like AI is probably one of the biggest tech policy issues of the time, and like, why is it in a budget bill? And some federalism issues. Why are we preventing the states
Exactly.
from passing laws? And 10 years is a long time in the tech space, and where AI will be in 10 years, that's an eternity. And like, too late to undo. I don't know. I'm shocked. I'm shocked and
Yeah.
concerned.
I
Is
can't
my initial
imagine.
reaction.
Yeah, shocked and concerned, absolutely. And like you said, I think sneaking it into a budget bill is because this is not a popular idea. I don't
Yeah.
think that an average American would hear this idea. Like you said, it is stripping states of their rights to pass laws for 10 years on a really important subject. And the way that they've snuck this into the budget bill is that they have linked compliance with this moratorium to a state receiving $500 million a year
Oh,
in
no.
broadband funding. But critics even warn that it could even jeopardize more than that 500 million a year, that it could jeopardize up to 42 billion in different tech subsidies. So there's some
I see.
confusion around exactly how much money is tied to this. But I think even that is concerning because they're making states have to choose between
Yeah.
funding for things like basic internet connectivity in rural places or giving up their rights to regulate on, like you said, an expansive issue. Like all of AI specific regulation that covers so many different things, right?
Yeah. Well, here's a little legal tidbit. It probably attaching it to spending is the only way it would be constitutional.
Mm.
So there's Supreme Court case law that says the federal government can prescribe, regulations or things to states related to funding. So in other words, like,
Mm.
Normally, the feds can't interfere with states' right to conduct its own business and pass its own laws unless it's contingent on funding. So the idea is that, like, well, you don't have to take the feds' money. It's First of all, this Supreme Court case law goes way back. So the idea was like, well, you don't have to take the Fed's money. And if the Feds want to control policy in this way tied to funding, it's like the state has the right to make that choice. Like, well, we won't take the Fed's money and maintain our sovereignty on these issues, or we're willing to accept the federal guidance and take money. For example, why I know about this is we think about libraries. So
Mm.
the federal government can require that state libraries, you know, have filters to stop
Mm.
kids from accessing pornography, for example, or they give up, federal funding to support their libraries, kind of thing. So that's a way the federal government can like get involved to protect kids at a state level in the library context, which makes a lot of sense. But in what you're discussing, it's like states have become so reliant on federal funding, probably more than in previous times, and this is like necessary federal funding. So this is very strong arm. This would be a very strong arm utilization of that principle.
Mhm.
Yeah, I find it really frightening. Sorry, Haley. So go
Absolutely.
ahead. I just wanted to throw that
No,
in
no,
there.
absolutely, that's fascinating because I was confused how this worked, so that makes a lot more sense, and at where this stands now is that the bill, it really narrowly passed the House. This is controversial bill for other reasons and issues, but now this is poised before the Senate, and there's gonna be a crucial Senate vote on that, and it's going to happen before the 4th of July deadline. And so now is a time when it's really important for people to be hearing about this and again, and taking action, which we'll talk about more at the end of the episode. But in general, the argument for this concept is that we need federal standards around AI regulation to avoid the chaotic regulatory patchwork of this state passes a law, this one doesn't. How could an AI company keep up with it all? And if a AI company is dealing with this chaotic regulatory system, will they be able to keep up and keep pace with China, for example? So they're saying we need
Scam.
to prioritize tech having immunities and the ability to just
Oh
run forward
my.
so we can outpace China. What are your thoughts on that?
This is Section 230 scam all over again. This is a
It is.
scam argument. Guess what? If 10 states passed uh, bills that were inconsistent with each other, Congress could convene and pass a federal law. Nothing would stop them. They don't need to stop states from, and you know what is so disturbing and scary about this, Haley, is that this is so clearly a consolidation of lobbying dollars and power. So
Yes.
the big tech has Congress in their pocket. And so what they want to do is they know they can influence federal congressional bills, whereas they can't as easily influence each of the individual states. And so what they're doing is consolidating power where they have influence. That's all this is. This is honestly frightening and sick. Seriously, because
It
they
is.
know that if they keep it to the feds, they can control the feds. Whereas if the states can go around, do pass laws, they would. This is what we're seeing in age verification, right? I'm sorry. When's the last time we've had a federal age verification bill? 1996.
Mhm. No.
1996. But the states took it matters into their own hands. And now we have, what, like 15, 20 age verification bills because the states can do it. And there's little that the big tech lobbying dollars can do to manage all 50 states and the grassroots efforts in the states and all the interpersonal dynamics at the state level. They can't get lobbyists with personal connections to state legislatures in 50 states, whereas they can
Yes.
send their lobbyists to the Hill, and they can fund these campaigns much more efficiently and to maximum effect. That's literally what this is. This has nothing to
Yeah.
do with tech not being able to this, that, or the other. That's totally made up.
No, I
This is
I
scary.
completely. It is scary, and you are right, I think very right to draw the parallel to Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which, as we've been talking about, has been interpreted by courts to allow big tech to have broad immunity from any kind of liability for problems on their platforms like sex trafficking, child sexual abuse, and more. And we've seen how the lack
The
of
fallout of
congressional
that.
oversight on tech has led to an absolute tsunami of harms, of children dying. I mean, the Social Media Victims Remembrance Day was just a couple of days ago here in Washington, D.C., and there were posters of children who died because of harms that they experienced on social media being posted, and an event that was held on Capitol Hill. Like, we've seen what complete lack of regulation in order to protect an idea of tech has led to, and what it leads to is the
Same
companies,
arguments.
they
We
don't prioritize
yeah,
safety without regulation.
no, they don't, and it's the
Mhm.
same arguments. We have to protect them or they won't be able to compete, they won't be able to whatever. It's complete nonsense, and how long have we been talking about 230 and Congress claims to care about 230, but have they done anything? Still no.
Yeah,
If tech gets this immunity, you'll have to pry it out of their cold, hard, dead hands. They will never let it go. This will just and the joke of the 10 years is bad enough. All of a sudden in, year 9, we just see an extension bill. Extend it
100.
for another 10 years. Extend it for another 20 years. This would never go away. It would become protracted immunity again. And guess what? I
And
bet you no federal bill will come. No
yeah,
federal bill
exactly.
will come.
Like, 10 years, this would be one thing if they said 8 months. If they're saying, "Listen, we've got a comprehensive suite of legislation. It's
We've
bipartisan.
already
It's gonna fix all the
ready
problems.
to
We're gonna have
go.
a clear federal vision, and it's gonna hold AI accountable and prevent foreseeable harms, and we're going to pass it in the next session." I would still be skeptical, but they are just giving themselves a decade for children to be harmed, for all kinds of fraud, all kinds of deep fakes, all kinds of, already children are dying by suicide after talking with chat apps that are encouraging it. I mean, we can go more into the harms in a minute here, but the idea that they're giving themselves 10 years, and it's not like Congress has a strong track record of being on top of these issues.
Exactly.
They're the last really comprehensive, which I would even put in quotation marks, child safety bill that they passed was over 25 years ago at the federal level
Exactly.
for child online safety. 25
Exactly.
years. Are they getting
And
faster? No.
no. And right, states are much more nimble. And also like the reality is that the companies will comply if even one state or two states buys a bill, the companies will
Mhm.
comply with the safest of the bills. So
Yeah.
that benefits our community, our children in this country.
Mhm.
And the other thing about this that's making me so disturbed and angry, and I hope everyone listening gets angry too, is AI is indisputably the greatest emerging threat in technology. Congress, everybody, it's on the news every day. Everyone's concerned about it. Sam Altman, who's he, the AI scary boogeyman,
Mhm.
said he was going put together a whole panel, said he was gonna do all these things for oversight, and then that got jettisoned. I mean, even Elon Musk
Mm.
was like, "Oh, guess we're not doing anything for safety on AI." Like, they already said that they were gonna self-govern and already gave up on that. Everyone quit. Everyone at
Mm.
whatever his AI company was quit because he literally said, "We're not prioritizing safety. That will make us no money." They've
Yeah.
already like, we have to learn our lesson. We have to learn our lesson. It's been, I think, the past 3 or 4 years where the tech bros of AI have been saying they've been convening at conferences and this and that, saying that they're going to self-regulate because they care. They see how scary AI could be, and they're going to do it. They have not done it.
Yeah.
They have not done it. And this is the same exact playbook used on 230. We know better now. We can't even get rid of 230. We can't make the same mistake. We
Mhm.
cannot let our Congress make the same mistake with 230 as AI because it will be the same thing, which is our kids will be killed. That will be the
Mhm.
result. Our kids will be killed for what? Convenience, technological convenience? Come on, we
Yeah.
don't need this. We can go, rest of our lives without AI. We don't need it, and we should not sacrifice our kids on the altar of the exciting possibilities of AI. My goodness, no.
And I think too, we don't even need to sacrifice, like, progress in AI or being competitive on the global stage with these issues. I think it's a complete straw
Yeah, I
man
think that's a
argument
straw
to
man.
say that, "Oh, the patchwork of state regulations, it's too overwhelming for, an AI company
And
to be able
machine
to
and
sort
machine
and
learning.
geolocate where what you're doing, where, like, you have the technology exists, and also countless other industries have variants in
Of
regulations
course.
across states, like telemedicine, ride sharing, all of these there's so many industries that are able to innovate and they're able to work. Like, innovation doesn't require uniform regulation. They can figure
Also,
it
I
out.
mean, what technology is better suited to learning the scheme and developing separately upon the rubric of the different schemes than machine learning software?
Yeah.
I mean,
Automate
the
it.
AI, the automated, the AI itself could tell the company in seconds what the regime is in any given state and plan its own trajectory in that given state and like have separate trajectories based on the regulatory regimes. I mean, this is
Yeah.
absolutely embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing of our Congress people to follow for this.
Yes. Yeah, as if ChatGPT just can't keep up. They can't keep
I
up
mean,
with
my
different
goodness.
laws being passed. I think too it is important to realize one of the things that I think is the most nefarious about this is one, yeah, that idea that an AI company can't keep up with different laws, but also this idea that like, well, we don't understand it yet. We don't understand everything that's going to come from AI, and so we can't have legislation around it. And I think that that's also a complete straw man. There's going to be new developments, new ways that we're using AI, new things that it can do, of course, over time, but there is so much harm that is immediately foreseeable right now,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's not impossible to conceive of how AI could be being used for fraud or for, like, deep fakes. I mean, let's just run through a quick list because AI is already being really actively weaponized to exploit children. There's obviously so many different issues with AI. Our focus is more narrow as we focus on sexual exploitation issues. I mean, we can talk about some of the other examples too, I think, Danny, but one example comes to mind, which is Meta. And so Meta's AI chatbot, we discussed this a while ago that the Wall Street Journal caught their chatbot engaging in explicit,
Oh, yeah.
sexually incredibly graphic conversations with minors. Boom,
Yeah.
that's already happening. Deep fake and nudifying apps are already a problem, and schools are reporting that it's being used for bullying, sextortion, and obviously traffickers are able to use that kind of thing for blackmail and to further
Mm.
abuse child abusers. The rise of child sexual abuse materials that are AI generated, like, the list goes on and on of what we already know, and to take the power of out of states' hands to address very common sense current problems that are happening for their constituents, I think is just willfully reckless at best.
It's so irresponsible and damaging. I mean, what comes to mind too, which is like such low hanging fruit, is we have a CSAM problem to begin with. Our internet is overrun with CSAM images. We're talking regular clear web. I'm not talking dark web. I'm talking the internet you and I use every day is full of CSAM images. And these AI learning bots are learning off of abuse material,
Yeah.
off of CSAM. Children's CSAM is going to teach these you want a end product that's been taught from the data of CSAM? It's sick. And like
Mhm.
that, most of that, there's even easy ways to even begin. Like, how about already hashed stuff? Like the models could disregard anything that's been hashed as CSAM. But they're not going to do any of that if not made. If
Mhm.
not forced. And, like, we should go slow with images because there's so much abuse content out there. Like, yes,
Yeah.
AI there should be lots of guardrails around these AI models developing based on images. That's something we should all want to slow down on. I mean, it's amazing when the internet came out and all of this stuff and copyright, everybody was ripping music and TV and copyright, and immediately that's all problem was solved because people were losing money. I
Yeah.
mean, that was a problem, like, back when I was 13, everybody had burned CDs, and it was like, "This isn't going away, like, this is just the new normal, like, sorry, your music's gonna get stolen." Nope, that's eradicated.
Mhm.
There is 0 I mean, not 0, but I mean, it is largely eradicated. People don't go around with stolen copyright material anymore. That was that seemed impossible, yet was so easy, and it's solved in a second because people's bottom lines were at issue.
Yeah.
If we
Yeah.
had that same kind of motivation to solve these exploitation issues, they would also be solved. The reality is this is not a technological problem. This is not a technological difficulty. This is a will, a desire. There is no desire to solve for these problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they just use this idea of competition, like we'll fall behind in the competition. But I think that the copyright is maybe also a good example um, for that because, I mean, maybe it's slowed us down in some ways that China or another country that doesn't have our copyright law isn't, but it's also
Yeah,
preserved so much
we're the
good.
entertainment leaders in the world because we
Mhm.
preserved copyright.
Yes. There is pushback, thankfully, to this. It's not a completely lost cause. Um, More and more elected representatives, thankfully, are obviously speaking out about it. I actually think the number's over. Actually, let me see if I have the number here. What I have written down is that there have been 260 state legislators who have
Wow.
spoken out against this, which makes sense, right? They're saying you can't
Yeah.
take take away states' rights. This is a states' rights issue. And then also 40 bipartisan state attorneys general have also they've warned Congress,
That's
right,
amazing.
which is really encouraging. And they speak out on broader issues than us. So they were saying that this would really harm tools that states have to curb AI powered fraud, obviously deep fakes,
Right.
also consumer and artist exploitation, and so many other problems. They mentioned the Tennessee's Elvis Act, which I think is around AI use of AI manipulation of performers, and Washington's deep fake statutes. So there are really good laws on the books, they're saying, and this would harm us to
Yeah, I
take
mean,
them out.
state AGs are, the biggest like, they're the ones that protect, like, for example, senior citizens who are regularly defrauded the internet, right? Like, senior
Yeah.
citizens are the most vulnerable to internet-based fraud, obviously will be extremely vulnerable to AI-based fraud, and it is not the feds, it's usually the state governments that protects their consumers, their elderly from fraud. Like this, that's a great point. We're not experts on that, but that stands out to me as being hugely problematic. And like, do we really want the federal government now to be solely responsible for all of the fraud? I mean, they're not going to do it. They don't have the
Yeah.
capacity. They can't do it. They won't do
They're
it.
so slow. Which
Yeah, they're
is
so
kind of the function of the like of Congress is to be slow, but especially, I mean, we're in very partisan times, and I think we are going to be for the foreseeable future. And so legislation just moves so slowly. And why would we take away the ability for states to protect their citizens? And I think too, isn't there this age old, like very American concept of that the states are incubators. The states are a place to where you
That's
pilot
the place
things
to
and it's a
test
grand
this out. Yeah.
experiment. Mhm.
Exactly. Well, and like if there's a bad AI bill in a state, then that's okay, that will pass quickly and be appealed quickly. And we'll start getting Supreme Court opinions and advice on that right away, which would
Mhm.
only be helpful for an ultimate federal, like the federal government could probably use the guidance, right? I mean,
Yeah.
let the states do some of this before they try. And like you said from the beginning, if there was already a bill ready to go and they just needed more time, also, though, nothing would stop it. If the federal government passed the bill, it would trump the state bills. So I mean,
Yeah.
unless there's some kind of like preemption argument I'm not understanding, I mean, that's
And
my
can you just for
understanding.
those who don't understand that, yeah, if a federal bill does come along, it does win at the end of the day. Can you just briefly explain that for those
Yeah,
who
I
might not
mean,
know?
and I'm not an expert on this, so maybe we'll follow up with if I miss or get something wrong here. But there's a constitutional concept known as preemption, which is that if there is a federal legislation on an issue, the states cannot contravene that. They can't write legislation that conflicts with federal
Mhm.
law. So that's how we kind of maintain that balance. But so I mean, I just imagine that that would easily be resolved. I don't think you
Yeah.
need to stop the states from trying.
Mhm.
The feds came in and did it, then that would end, that would squash it all, you know?
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, any final thoughts on this, Danny, before we wrap up and tell people how they can help?
Yeah, that's just all I wanna say, Abby's just been in the halls talking about this stuff. I've heard that the pressure and sort of the public outcry is working. I haven't
Mhm.
reviewed it yet, but just put out modified language on this as a result of pressure. I don't know if that means it's somewhat better, but better will be gone. But all that to
Mhm.
say is like that, your voices, you writing to your, members really does matter. If everyone is if all of these officers are getting letters that their constituents do not like this, that will kill the bill,
Yeah,
kill this provision.
absolutely. Absolutely. And so we're going to have a link in the show notes for a really easy action and way that everyone can do this. Obviously, look up who your senators are and give them a call. Calls are really, really effective. If you have even just 5 minutes, you can call it. You don't have to be an expert on these issues. You can just say one or two things, a couple sentences, just urge them to reject the AI moratorium. And just, you can even just say that. Just say, I don't want this. I don't want this for our state. I want us to be able to pass regulations, reject the 10-year moratorium on state regulations for AI. And that is enough for you to say. So sometimes I want to demystify that you have to call and, you don't need an essay, you don't need to be an expert on these issues, but they really, really care about calls that they get. But we also will have a link in the chat. It'll take less than 30 seconds for you to fill out this form, and you can email senators who are on the budget committee. So these are really important senators who need to be hearing from you that Americans don't want this included in the budget bill. So please just fill that out, send it to your friends, share it on social media. And really, this is a very urgent call to action. Today and tomorrow and the next day are incredibly important days for continuing to call for this. And like I said, there is hope here. There's bipartisan voices that are speaking out. I mean, I think it's absurd on its face. I think everyone recognizes that this doesn't really make sense if you think about it for more than 5 seconds. And so I think that there is hope here, but we're coming down to the wire on it. And people really do need to hear from constituents.
Awesome. Well, I did mine. I sent mine. You send yours. Thank you,
Good, I
Haley, and
did.
thanks for updating me too on all the details of how this is working and where we are. This is super important.
Yeah, I hope that next time we talk, we'll be breathing a sigh of relief. But this is why it's really important for us to be tracking these issues and to be using the lens of trying to prevent sexual abuse and exploitation is a really helpful lens in thinking through if legislation like this makes sense or not. So thank you all so much for listening, for caring. Like I said, that link for action will be in the show notes. Please share it. Please like and subscribe to the podcast as well. Thank you all so much. And we will chat soon next week when very likely we will have an update for you on the Supreme Court decision for age verification for consumers of pornography.
Yes.
So that will be something to look forward to next week. We'll find out any day now.